you're very talented, you're just too fat. People want to see themselves reflected on stage. I'm done living in the shadow.
Welcome back, you guys. I am here with Morgan, and we are talking all about ballet culture, body image, and dance, and the pressure dancers can feel to fit a certain mold. We also get into how those experiences can shape your confidence and your career as you move into the professional world. If you've ever struggled with comparison in the dance world or questioned whether you fit the industry's expectations, I think this episode will give you a very honest perspective and hopefully remind you that there's more than one way to build a successful career. Just a quick reminder before we get into it, about 80% of people who listen to podcasts don't actually follow the show. So if you enjoy this episode or you've been listening for a while, hitting follow or subscribe is the easiest way to support the podcast and make sure you don't miss future episodes. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Kicking It Real. I'm here with Morgan, who is a freelance performer, choreographer, and teacher. She's adjunct faculty at Roosevelt University, on staff at Visceral, has performed in so many different things such as Frozen, Music Man, Matilda, so many fun things to get into. So Morgan, welcome to Kicking It Real.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get into this. We have like so many, I say so many, we have some like inner working connections and I've heard only amazing things. So I'm excited to get into it. So we're going to warm it up with what you've been kicking it with lately.
Yes. Okay. I've been kicking it with way too much Bravo TV. Bravo has been really slaying the game in terms of all of the new shows that they've been like putting out on air. Like, I love me, The Real Housewives. I love Southern Charm, but like they just put out a new series called The Valley Persian Style, which I am like locked into the drama. And they have, and they have this new like Ladies of London show, which I'm excited to watch. So I've been kicking it real with my reality TV.
Okay. Do you watch Netflix at all, or it's like you're a strictly Bravo girl now?
No, I definitely watch Netflix. Like I just finished the new season of Bridgerton. I binged that in like 2 days. So
that's the only way to do it, really. Like a straight binge. It's like we're all or nothing type of people. Yes,
exactly. And honestly, I will say it was kind of nice not to have to wait for both of the parts to come out. I just waited for both parts. And then I said, okay, here we go. Let's dive right in.
I think about that, how we're so spoiled now. I'm like, what are commercials? Like,
no, that part.
We had to sit through that. I wouldn't watch no TV ever, but I love that. What are you kicking to the curb?
Kicking to the curb. Well, I'm trying to kick to the curb comparison. Comparison is what I'm trying to kick to the curb. Yes.
It's like ongoing battle.
It's an ongoing battle. It's something that I'm in my Saturn return right now. And I think that the universe is trying to really test me with this whole comparison thing that I just feel like it's been an ongoing test.
For selfish reasons, can you explain Saturn return? I'm like slowly getting into astrology. I have co-star.
Yes.
I know like Venus is love. Yes. I'm getting into it. Wait, what is Saturn return?
Okay, Saturn. So I feel like I say this and I'm like, I'm also like, I would consider myself a beginner intermediate astrology person. So definitely not even intermediate, more beginner. But I would say like Saturn return, from what all of my astrology friends tell me, is that it's basically like the universe's way of like throwing all of the tests and all of the battles at you that you've endured for like the first almost like 30 years of your life. And you're getting it back to see if you have learned these lessons so that you can continue moving forward.
That's like kind of witchcrafty. It sounds almost to me. Like that's intense.
Woo-woo. Yeah, it's woo-woo.
I'm into the woo-woo though. Okay, how did you find out that? Do you have co-stars? Is that your choice?
Yes. Well, I didn't co-star it. I think I did like Astrology Cafe or something like that because a friend of mine was like, "Is it your Saturn return?" I'm like, "Well, I turned 30 last year." And I was like, you can't be going through your Saturn return like at 30. Like everybody tells me it's like 20, 28, like 29. Sure enough, literally last year, it was like April 15th or something like that. So I was 29 and it said I started my Saturn return, and apparently Saturn returns last like a year to 2 years. So I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? 2 years. That's a really long time, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like the joke I always am like, oh, is Mercury in retrograde? Because when bad things are happening, or when life's hard, you're like, oh, well, it's just because I'm in my Saturn return. It's fine.
Exactly.
We just need a reason for things. We need explanations for things. I love that. I've been very excited about the Chinese lunar year, the year of the fire horse.
Yes.
That's getting me
same.
really hype for that, which that we don't have to spend too much. I joke this is like it's half an astrology podcast at this point, but that's okay.
And period.
Moving on. Maybe we can weave it in as we go. We're going to go back to the beginning of your journey. You grew up in a very ballet focused studio with nutcrackers, spring ballets, all of the things. What was that environment like day to day? And how did it influence your shift towards theater freelance work that you're in now?
Yeah. I will say I'm like, where to even begin? The biggest takeaway, I will say the most positive takeaway that I took from just being in that environment was, I mean, just as we know, like dancers are super disciplined. So you have to be super disciplined. You have to just like put yourself in that good mindset to show up and like actually want to put the work in, especially in ballet. Cause ballet, I will say, is just like, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's like so many things that go into it. And like, not to say that other dance forms don't have that, but like ballet is just like its own battle in and of itself. And so the biggest takeaway like that I loved about being in that environment was that it gave me the technique that I needed to like do this long term and be able to teach, because I feel like so many people, and especially like the students I teach now, like I'm trying to just like preach to people. I'm like, you have to have technique. If you want to do this like for a really long time, you have to go to ballet class. I'm like, it's unfortunate. Like I literally was just telling this like younger class that I teach on Mondays, I was like, it sucks. Honestly, I was like, I'm going to be so real. I was like, it sucks. It's not something that anybody ever wants to do. I was like, but you have to just do it. I was like, you have to pay attention. You have to learn how to plie properly and how to tendu properly. I was like, so that was like a positive takeaway. I will say like some of the negative aspects about that environment was just like, which I know we'll get into, like a lot of eating disorders, a lot of just like comparison, a lot of, just like the teacher student relationships would get really toxic, especially with like the casting of it all, like in the Nutcrackers and in the spring ballets. And then like the fights that would happen amongst like friends at the studios, like it just like, it's stuff like that I kind of, and I will say, thankfully for me, and again, I know like we'll get into this, but like I was somebody who, like I've always been a career dancer. So my teachers and my ballet teacher specifically, and like the woman who owned the studio never really looked at me seriously, if that makes any sense. Like they were just kind of like, whatever. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's so dumb. I'm now I'm 30 and I'm like grown out of that trauma, but like, it comes up every now and again.
Yeah, it's deep rooted.
Yeah. But like, yeah. Those were some of like the negative aspects. But what really kind of, I feel like because I tried to take away like a positive through it and everything, it really like led me into loving like jazz, specifically jazz and like hip hop, because that's what I realized I was good at. I was like, okay, like I can do ballet. I was like, I know, like I'm paying attention in class. Like I'm trying to take everything that my teachers are telling me in, but like I love nothing more than to perform and to be like sassy and to be fierce and to just be like, that's just like, I feel like who I am as a performer. And so it made me realize being in that environment that I was like, okay, this is not the environment for me. And I'm not going to try to mold myself to be, something that I'm not, when I know that my heart is like calling me to this other side. I used to always joke like I was like, yeah, I'm the jazzerina in a room full of ballerinas.
Yeah. It's a superpower at that point though.
No, literally.
And I love what you said too about and it's that saying you have to know what you don't like as well. Like you don't know what you don't know. But I also agree in the sense of that foundation and that sense of discipline. People nowadays, I think, underestimate what a strong ballet technique foundation can do for you, because I'm sure that allowed you to be an even stronger and more confident jazz dancer because you had that backing, whether maybe in the moment you knew it or not. I'm sure now you do, but hindsight 2020.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, now you were able to do that. Did you strictly do ballet, or was it just a lot of ballet and then you did other classes?
It was a lot of ballet. Like if you wanted to even be considered for the Nutcracker or the Spring Ballet, like the minimum, like when we got into high school, it was like 5 to 7 ballet classes a week. Like 3 to 4 of those classes were like point classes. Like It was like, yeah, it was definitely like, it was a lot. It was a lot. But then, on top of that, I also did like, I took jazz, I took lyrical, I took contemporary, I took hip hop, I took, musical theater. Like my mom did a really good job of like being like, nope, we're going to sprinkle in like all these extra classes. And like musical theater was hands down like one of my favorite classes. And I think that's also what kind of made me realize like how much I was starting to really like grow into and love theater.
That's so cool. It's also just not to take away from your experience, because like for me, it's so interesting to hear different people's perspectives, because I went to a studio where we were very well rounded, but I was that person that was like, I want more ballet. I did point growing up, and I was going to like lower levels to get more ballet. But it's so funny just because my experience and environment was so different, and not that in a good or bad way, but just how my relationship is so different than yours, which it just like informs. But it's really cool that you were able to separate that. Do you think that had maybe like your mom had anything to do with that, if you want to get into that?
With like musical theater?
Yeah. Or just like, because it was a little surprising to me because your mom was a Broadway performer. And so when I was like, oh, you went to a ballet school and she did Broadway, which was there reasoning behind that? But you did do everything that you just said though.
Yeah.
More well-rounded.
I think, well, because like we grew up in LA, she like when she was done with like doing like Broadway and we moved to Los Angeles, she became like really like, she did like strictly like film and television and whatnot. And I feel like she still had and like made a ton of connections within like the dance world in LA. And I think like the studio because the studio I went to from like, I think I went there like from ages like 10 to like when I graduated high school. So like 17, 18. I went to this other dance school, which like definitely was, again, it was so long ago, but we did ballet, we did jazz, we did a lot of those things, but she just wasn't happy, I think, with like what we were getting. And I remember her being like, I think it's time for us to find a new studio. And then when we went to this studio, the reason she took me there, and like, mind you, she took me to the studio. And at the time, the house we were living in was literally like 45 minutes to an hour away from where we lived. So Miss Girl was driving an hour there, an hour back. Yeah.
I love that though.
I know like the reason she wanted to take me to this studio was because the teachers, like one of the, Kenny Ortega's assistant, Chucky, like when High School Musical was like was at its like prime, Chucky literally would like come in and do master classes at this studio. Wow. So like it had, and like the teachers that taught there had like so many, like they were themselves professionals and they had so many professional connections to like a lot of like just really great, like, really great people in the city. And so my mom like took me to the studio and was like, this is the new studio. And she definitely was someone of the mindset as well of like, you need ballet. Like you need ballet as like the foundation. And, it's another opportunity to perform, that they get to do Nutcrackers and they get to do these spring ballets. Yeah. And that's at least what I took it as. I was like, even if I'm not a ballerina, I was like, I love performing more than any. I was like, I just want to be in a costume on stage. I was like, that's all I want to do.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
That it's such a blessing to have a mom who like quite literally gets it. Yeah. My mom, bless her soul, she just was like, yeah, whatever you want. Like because she had no dance experience, which your mom sounds amazing. So this question is not based on what I think of your mom, but did you ever feel growing up that her background, her experience, did you ever feel internal pressure, not from her, but maybe your own pressure or expectation? Or like, when did you decide I'm going to make a career out of this?
Yeah. It's funny because I remember asking her, this was a couple years ago. I was like, did you ever expect me to like go into like the arts and like performing and whatnot? And she was like, or I think I also asked, I was like, did you like put me in dance specifically because you're like, I want her to be a dancer? And she like to this day is like, no. She's like, I really didn't care where you, or like, obviously they care, but like, she was like, I didn't really care, career wise, how you ended up. She was like, but I knew that I was going to put you in dance from the beginning. So I asked her, did you ever think I was going to go into the arts? And she was like, no, I was going to put you in dance regardless, just to kind of like move your body and like all this stuff. And again, it teaches you so much more than that. But there were moments where she was dance mommy, naturally. There were moments having a mother who was on Broadway and like is a great performer herself, like naturally, I don't want to say yell, but she would get very stern with me. Like she would be like, you need to make sure you stand in the front. You need to make sure that you're quiet. You need to make sure you're paying attention. You need to make sure that you're doing all this. And like, she naturally did all of that. But like, I guess looking back, I'm like, I don't think I personally felt any kind of pressure to ever uphold that expectation. I think the only thing, like, and I've even realized this in my adult life, is of the way that we went about things. Like the way that I know that she went about things in her career and the way that she went about things growing up is different to like how I wanted to do it. And one thing about the both of us, we are both very stubborn individuals, stubborn women. The apple does not fall far from the tree.
Does not.
And so, yeah, that was like kind of one of the main things was I was like, she never pressured me to do anything or continue this. She always just was like, if you're going to do this, you need to make sure that you're putting the work in and that you're doing it. You're doing it for you.
It's just like giving you that expectation too, because again, not any shade at my mom. She tried to like push me to do some things, but not heavily, but she also had no idea of what the world was like. Because even for me, when I wanted to be a Rockette, but I went to their summer intensive and I was like 15 and I did it. And I was like, okay, I don't need to do it again until I'm like 18 or whatever because I'm too young. But now I know I should have kept going and showed your face. Like things like that it is nice to like have a parent that like really understands it and is supportive. And another interesting thing, as you were talking, I was like, I don't think I've talked to yet a single person on this podcast who is in their adult life and successful in the industry that had parents that were pushy. Everyone's like, no, my parents maybe were nervous about a career in the arts, but they never told me how to do it or if I put any expectation on me in that way, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
For a lack of a better word, but we love that. I'm taking a quick pivot, but when you applied for college, we talked a little bit before we started recording, obviously, about how interesting it is to grow up in LA and then not wanting to live there. What drew you into Chicago and or away from LA?
Wow. Okay. Honestly, it's one of my favorite questions to answer. So when I was applying for colleges, the original college that I wanted to go to, I didn't get into. And I'm like, I feel like it's such a natural thing. In the moment, you're like, it's the end of the world. But like, you grow up and you're like, wow, I'm not the only one. But the college I wanted to go to, I didn't get into. And so my mom actually was like, why don't you take like essentially like a gap year? She was like, why don't you go to community college? There was a community college probably about like 30 to like 40 minutes away from at the time we were living in an apartment. And it was like it had one of the best dance programs for a community college in like the entire state of California. And
that.
I know. I was like, and so there was a community college that was like around the corner, but my mom was like, why don't you go to that one? And then that way you can continue like your dance training. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I went to that community college, went for a year. And then that's when, a friend of my mom's who also was on Broadway, who is the head of, or used to be the head of Roosevelt, like the musical theater dance department. She actually was like, you should have Morgan audition for CCPA, which is Chicago College of the Performing Arts. And because my plan was take a gap year, reapply to that school and like see if I get in and we'll go from there. And so I was like, let me just go ahead. I was like, now instead of applying to just one school and putting all my eggs in one basket, let me apply to 2 schools. And I did, and I auditioned, and I ended up getting a partial scholarship. So like a half scholarship to go. And on paper, honestly, the program, because it was musical theater with like a dance concentration. So on paper, I was like, this is kind of the most perfect program for me because like I am a dancer first in the world of musical theater. I was like, and I want to find a program that is, it's like very musical theater heavy, but it's like also very dance focused.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I got my acceptance letter. I got that partial scholarship. And I just remember like looking at my mom because she knew how much I wanted to go to this other school. And she was like, but you wanted to go to that other school so badly. And I was like, yeah, but like, honestly, I changed my mind. I think that being in Chicago too, I was like, it's a major city because the other school was Indiana University. I was like, I'm in the middle of nowhere in
Girl,
the
wasn't that a ballet?
cornfield.
Isn't that a ballet school also?
Yes, but I wasn't trying to go for ballet. I was not trying to go for ballet.
Okay, I didn't know, like in my head, I was like only ballet. Maybe it's Butler I'm thinking of. That's probably what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. No, this was for me. It was for musical theater. It was like at this point, I was like, thank you, ballet. I was like, I'm never putting point shoes on ever again. I was like, we're strictly just going to be in a 3-inch character heel.
Yes.
But yeah, so like we had talked, and all of a sudden I was like, it's in Chicago. And my mom was like, well, she's like, I do have a lot of people tell me that Chicago is kind of like the second best like city for theater other than New York. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, and I think that it would I was like, I didn't apply to USC. I didn't apply to UCLA. I didn't apply to like UCSD. I applied to 0 UC schools in California. I was like, get me out of here. And I love telling people this. I'm like, I'd never visited Chicago. I literally packed up 2 suitcases, a giant duffel bag, my backpack, got on a red-eye flight, said goodbye to my mom, moved to Chicago, and literally never looked back.
Did you really know what you were getting yourself into? Like I was like, you could maybe put 2 jackets in a duffel bag. Like what you didn't prepare. But I guess you are there in the winter. Never mind. Oh my God. Okay. But one thing that I've already picked up on about you is that you're a girl that you know what you want.
Yeah, for the most part,
what you don't want, or you know what you don't want. How about that? Yeah.
Yes,
where you're just like, no, I'm not doing this. Okay. I also hate that was literally like in my backyard essentially. And I had no idea about that program at all. Did you do a lot of research? Because I, to this day, again, no regrets at this point, but I did not do like any research. I just was like, oh, everyone went to Western Michigan. Let's go there.
Right. No, I had no idea the program, like legit never heard of this program. Mind you, I will say like my year that I graduated, I was able to transfer in. Like I did not start over as a freshman. I transferred in as a sophomore, but like our class, which is the class of 2017, we were the inaugural like musical theater dance concentration class. So this program was like completely completely having to be built from like the ground up, and like we were the guinea. And I even say like to my students now, because I teach there, I'm like y'all think it's rough, I'm like, try going there when you were literally the literal guinea pig class. Yeah,
that's crazy. Do you feel like that maybe helped you in your teaching days now? Like, because you probably had to like, borderline help build the program essentially.
Yes, absolutely. I think that and it's not just like my teachers at Roosevelt. I will say like, this is just my teachers just in general and like all of my dance life. Like I try to model and be the teacher that I wish that I had. And I did have. And like, that's the thing is I had so many incredible teachers. I really did, that I truly like to this day, like considered to be some of my still favorite teachers of all time. But like, it taught me like the teachers who I was like, and I want to be nothing like you. And it also taught me the teachers that I'm like, and I want to be everything like you. And I want to make sure that like the feelings that you gave me, the good feelings, that I'm able to like pass that on to others.
Yeah. It's kind of too, you had such a stark difference of example. It makes the bad teachers look so much worse when you have that good example, and you're like, oh. And that's also too, when I hear people's stories, I didn't have really tough teachers in that way until college. Like my teachers growing up, like I'm still close with them and was so lucky. So it's just that's what I'm always asking people. I'm like, what do you do? Because I don't even know how to guide people in that way of like, when you have a bad teacher, like it's just not worth it. And it's cool to see that it can be done in another way, which we love. Kind of getting into bad teachers and the negative for a second. Growing up in the ballet world, as you mentioned earlier, did affect your body image and very deeply. How do you feel like those experiences shaped how you viewed your body, and how has that evolved as you've gotten older, gotten rid of some of that trauma?
God, to be honest, I don't think that trauma will ever go away. It's like it's one of those sad truths where I'm like, I think the trauma will always kind of be, it's like a small chip on your shoulder. I wouldn't say it used to be a huge chip. Now I just kind of look at that chip and like, sometimes I'm able to flick it away, and then it's like a boomerang and it'll like sometimes come back.
Well, it's like you learn how to deal with it. You don't learn to get rid of it, essentially.
To get rid of it, exactly. But yeah, sorry, I'm trying to like think how to answer this question, because I have
a lot.
I always say like, I'm like, I think one day in my lifetime I will probably write a book.
You should.
Not that like not that people like would care to read it, but like just for my own
therapy, like relief.
For my own therapy, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would read it.
Thank you. I'm trying to think. I think it's just like it's easy for me to start at the very beginning, as Mary Poppins would say, a very good place to start. I think growing up in a ballet studio, it caused me to kind of like allow myself to kind of push myself into the corner, if that makes any sense, to allow myself to just kind of like be pushed in the shadow and be like, you know what, I'm not here. You don't like looking at me. I don't like looking at me. I mean, that's also a really hard pill to swallow, but that was just my hard truth, right? You don't like looking at me. I don't like looking at me. I also have a mother who, again, was in the performance industry, who is also a little person in my ear being like, you need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. If you want your teachers to take you seriously, if you want to do this professionally, you need to lose weight. Like you need to fit the standard. That is the standard. It taught me resilience. It taught me that like I have to work 10 times harder to be taken seriously. And that's just the cold hard truth. I did the Joffrey summer intensive one summer. I remember going to that program and again, just being pushed off to the side, like not really being taken seriously. And again, like it was a safe space that I kind of was fine being in for the most part. Like I was just kind of like, whatever, like this is just, it is what it is. Like I'm I'm fat to all these people. They don't really care about me. Like I'll just exist in this space and just be here. And I'll never forget, I came back from that summer intensive and I just went, you know what? I was like, I'm done living in the shadow. I'm done living in the back. I'm done being like a person that like is kind of, the best way I can describe it in this moment is literally, if you've seen Inside Out, the character in the second movie that has the hoodie that like ties its thing and like goes into the corner and like doesn't want to be seen. I was like, actually, I'm taking my hoodie off. I was like, I think I'm going to like pretend like I have a spotlight on me and I'm just going to like show these people that I'm not that terrible. Because I think like the other thing too about it was for the longest time was like I suck because of just like all of this outside stuff and like living in the shadow. But then there was a moment, I think at the summer intensive where I like looked around and I was like, I'm not that bad. I was like, I'm not that bad. I'm just kind of like tired of people automatically assuming that like I can't do anything. And I remember, and I always I tell my students this too, like I would get in the car as a kid and I would sob to my mom and I'm like, I got put in the back. I got put in the back again. Like, I don't know what else I can do to show my teachers that I'm like dedicated and like that I'm good enough to be put in the front. And I'll never forget like my mom like telling me one day, she was like, wipe your tears away. She would let me cry. She was not mean like that. Yeah. She would let me cry, but she was tough like, wipe your tears away. Yeah, tough love. And she was like, make them look at you. She was like, you're tired of being in the back? She's like, be in the back and make the attention go to you. And Dang. And I remember like coming back like from that summer intensive and it was kind of like all of that advice and all of that kind of just like, I felt myself lock in and I was like, I'm not standing in the back in class anymore. In ballet, different story. But like jazz, musical theater, contemporary, I was like, I'm done standing in the back. I was like, I'm going to start going across the floor in the front. I'm going to start warming up in the front and I'm going to start like pushing myself out of this shadow that I feel like, yes, my teachers kind of influenced, but I also feel like it was like 80-20. It was 80% me being like, nobody likes me. I'm just going to live back here.
Yeah.
And so like once I kind of owned it, I guess, for lack of a better statement. And I started to kind of just like push myself out of my comfort zone is when I felt like everything started to click. But I will say, like, regardless, that gave me the confidence, I feel like, that I needed, like, to move forward. But like, you know, college was no different. I had teachers that were like, you need to lose weight. Like, you're never going to work. Like, you're never going to be successful. You're never going to be anything that, you know, your talent, the amount of times I always say, I'm like, the amount of times I had somebody look at me and be like, you're very talented. You're just too fat. Like, yeah, like the amount of times people would tell me that, I'm like, I literally could pay off all my student loans. Like, I'm like, it's crazy.
Sometimes, like, I don't know why I get surprised by things like this anymore. I don't know why I do. But like every time I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's like, and that's the thing. Yeah. It's like one of those things where it's just like, I became numb to it, if that makes any sense. Like I just became so just like, I was like, oh, let me guess, you know, like I would take a meeting with somebody and they're like, and in my head, I was like, let me guess, they're going to tell me I'm too fat to do anything. And lo and behold, that's what it became. And so, you know, I graduated college. I feel like I locked in because I like got out, I started auditioning. I would get callbacks. Sometimes I wouldn't get second callbacks. Sometimes I would get second callbacks. Sometimes I would make it to the very end and I still wouldn't hear anything. Literally, like, I felt like my brain was like, it's because I'm too fat. It's because I'm too fat. It was like all of like what people told me my entire life was kind of just like, it's because of that reason. Like, I would call my mom like crying and she's like, well, maybe it's because you're just, she would, unfortunately add to it. And it kind of like, I locked in like probably like a year or two after I graduated. I lost I was the skinniest I'd ever been. I think I got on the scale. I was like 155. And I remember like looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, I'm still too fat. I was like, I'm still, and like, I look at pictures of myself now, Gabby. Oh my God. Like pictures of like when I was that skinny. And I was like, and I thought I was still huge. I was like, and you know what? And then that's when I get really angry at like the people who teach in this industry and the people who are in power in this industry. Cause I'm like, you guys are the problem. Like, you guys are the problem. The fact that I would like looked at myself and I was like, that is the skinniest I've ever been. And like, not like a bad skinny. Like, I looked healthy. I was in shape. I was hitting the gym every day. I was eating so well. And the fact that I still just like was like, I'm still too big. My thighs are too big. I was like, the boys are not going to be able to lift me and like all this stuff. It just like,
Oh, I'm only being quiet. I'm feeling the same way internally right now. So please, no.
It's so traumatizing to the point where even again, like as a 30-year-old woman, I still like, I'd be lying if I didn't say I still struggle with food, my relationship with food and like my body image and everything. I will say like there was a certain point in my adulthood where I finally just like looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm done pretending like I'm not curvy. I was like, I'm done pretending like I don't have a butt and like I don't have thighs and that like, I don't have a bigger chest than a lot of these girls. I was like, I'm done because no matter how skinny I get, I was like, it's not going to be good enough for whoever it's not going to be good enough for. And that's not okay, but it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yes. But it's taking your own power back. And also it's just unfortunate because for so many reasons, obviously, but like what a disservice too for you then to not even be able to look at being cut from things objectively, because maybe some of the times it was, surely some of the times it was, but maybe it wasn't, but you don't have like the headspace to be able to even rationalize with yourself anymore because you've been pushed so far down in that rabbit hole of how do I get myself out of that, which is insane to me. I have so many things I could say. To start, I love going all the way back to the Joffrey intensive too, how you said like it like locked all of the things you had been hearing like clicked in of coming out of your shadow. And I was like, I relate to that so much because I've had so many instances outside of the dance world now in this like past year of my life of like, oh my gosh, now how this person said it or this experience that I had, I already knew that, whatever it was, but maybe you had to hear it for the 10th time, or maybe someone had to say it when you were in the right headspace, or they said it in a way and then it hits and you like lock in and took some of that power back. And then I'm sure it kind of fluctuated for you a little bit of like, yes, I've got it, I'm back. And then you're back down and then you're up and then you're back down for probably
even literally today, like as a 30-year-old woman. Yes, 1000%.
And I think that's the thing too. I don't know why the generation above us is so resistant to change and like very persistent on dumping their trauma onto us instead of changing it. That's also half the point of the show of like, we have the power to change all of the bad things that have been going on. So if you could go back to someone that was in your shoes, what would you maybe encourage a teacher or a director or whoever, maybe not a director, let's just do a teacher of like, what would you have needed in that moment to maybe get you to that healthy place instead of getting there out of like a negative place of like maybe encouraging a good relationship in that way to be strong?
Yeah, I think I would have loved to have had a teacher that just encouraged like a healthy lifestyle in the sense of like, if you want, and it's something I've learned within, I'd say like the past 5 years, like I want to dance until like I can't dance anymore. And the only way I'm going to do that is if I like hit the gym and I cross train. And I wish that like I would have had like a teacher be like, you're not hitting the gym to get skinny. You're hitting the gym to get stronger. You're hitting the gym because there's so many like amazing exercises that also correlate to how we train in dance and how much stronger we feel when we take class and when we, perform and all that stuff. So it was like, there's that. And I also just wish that people like, again, my mom grew up like in the 80s on Broadway in New York City, where all the dancers were like snorting coke and not eating. And like, they were doing not great things to keep their physique. Like my mom used to just tell me as a kid, she was like, just skip a meal. Like, don't eat that, And like, it's like, it's so terrible, but it was like, in a way, like, that's what she knew. And I wish that I would have had like a teacher just be like, you can eat. Like, you don't have to skip a meal. Just like, be mindful of like what you're putting in. Like, instead of you wanting to grab like a bag of chips, like grab a banana, maybe put some peanut butter on it. So you still get that like salty, like that salty craving. It curbs that craving and whatnot. Like, just like find moments where, you can think like you can find moments to eat like a healthy snack and then still go home. And if you want to end your day with a sweet treat, end your day with a sweet treat. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
You're like 15. Like, it's fine. You're going to be okay.
Right. Like,
You're literally going to be fine.
I have the metabolism of literally a child at this point. Like, I can eat whatever I want and still be like, I'm not going to be like, I guess like my teachers and like my mom and everything, like they made me feel like I was like low-key obese, like just like I was literally 300 pounds. And again, like I would look at myself in the mirror and think and see a 300-pound girl when in reality, I was like, 15? I was 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And like, I go back and I look at myself and I'm like, that doesn't look like a girl who is overweight. That just looks like a girl who has like some chunkier thighs than the other girls that she's dancing with. And again, like that's okay because, and one thing that I really like find myself, especially like on the teacher side of things, and even like as a choreographer too, when I'm watching my students in class, when I'm like running an audition room and I'm like watching the weight, people's weight is the last thing that I'm like I'm ever thinking about. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, your weight means nothing to me. I'm like, are you talented? Or can you do the steps? Like, do you have the movement quality that I'm looking for? Do you have the groove? Do you have the style? The last thing I am literally thinking about is how big somebody's like thighs are or how big somebody's waist is. Like, truly. And it's mind boggling to me that people still like think that way in today's world.
It is insane to me because some of the most talented dancers I remember from college were curvier dancers. I hadn't even thought about that until we were talking about it right now. I agree 1,010%. And I also love the approach of how can we be stronger, not how can we be skinnier, because it's also just going to benefit everyone in so many other aspects than just like the physique part of it, just like the pure strength. And I will say too, I don't know how you feel about this, of when I was growing up, I say this all the time where I don't blame any of my teachers. I think our generation too, we also understand the importance and the benefits of cross training a little bit more. Because for me, it was like, oh, well, you're dancing all day. You don't need to go cross train too. That's enough. And you don't need like a 10-year-old lifting weights. Just encouraging that part of it and not automatically assuming someone's strength, someone's control, someone's movement quality based off of how they're walking into the room. And I love the energy part of it too, because that is what's going to tell you what someone's going to do, and not in like they're just smiling, but just it's like that. It's that something in that you can't teach. You can't teach someone. They have to find it for themselves. And unfortunately, it feels like sometimes it's like the trauma really like makes us find it, which is a sad truth. But also I just don't think it needs to be done that way. For like a lack of better explanation. I know now in your work that you've been exposed to a lot more inclusivity and like more diversity, and that way I think I would agree, especially in like the musical theater space. Do you feel that changing in the ballet industry at all? Or do you think that will change or have hope for that?
Short answer, no. Like, I just don't see, I don't see the ballet world ever changing. I think, and honestly, like if I'm being so for real and honest, I still think like theater has a long way to go. Like, I think that the theater industry has only literally just scraped the surface. Like, I don't think that, like, as much as people love to preach that they're all about diversity and inclusivity, in my experience, sometimes people don't always practice what they preach.
I was going to say, does it ever feel like sometimes it's a PR thing that people are saying that
Yes.
rather than coming from a genuine place? It's more of like,
Yes.
oh, well, we have to be correct and say this.
Yes.
And hit our quota.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, like, I think that there are some, I don't want to negate that. I think that people want to be, like, I think that people inherently, like, want to kind of like what we've been talking about, like, they want to change and they want to change for the better and they want to make sure that they're being inclusive and all this stuff. Like, I really do believe that. I think that sometimes, like, execution and maybe just circumstances doesn't always allow that to happen. And that's why, like, I don't ever want to completely fault on, like, those people, because it's not always 100% them. Like, just like, nothing in life is ever black and white. It's always, we all live in a gray area. And so, but I think that, like, again, we've only just scratched the surface. Like, I think that there's so much more mindfulness that people can practice. Like, for instance, like, I noticed when I watched Death Becomes Her, like, when they did the Chicago, before they transferred it to Broadway, everybody in the ensemble was literally size 0, size 2. And I remember sitting there, and the whole premise of the show is literally like, she wants to drink the elixir because she wants to remain beautiful. And beautiful in the eyes of society is size 0 to size 2, and you are young and and you are just, you're skinny and you're pretty and you're all this stuff. And I remember sitting there and I was like, what in the frick? And it was like one of those things where I was like, and it's not even, I don't know. I just like sat there and I just kind of was like, but yet, theater right now, it's like people want to just like sit there and preach, how diverse and inclusive they are of everybody, and no matter how much we try to tell just like anybody, it's like people want to see themselves reflected on stage. People want to see, people want to see people that look like them on that stage. It's just one of those things where I feel like, it's a never ending battle, I guess. And like I said, like, it's all about like circumstances and all that kind of stuff.
No, and I agree. The idea of it not, sometimes people have the intention, and I think sometimes people don't even know the steps or know the tools to get to that point. And I also think that big companies, like big ballet companies, or even any type of theater production, like, it's still a business at the end of the day. So even typically, right, like the creative director, whoever, like, there's someone they're reporting to who has way more power than they have. But that's not their job to let you know that. That's not your fault. You're just there to do your job or to do whatever you're there to perform and do those things. So one day, I think a good first step is talking about it. I think we're hopefully in that way going towards a better trajectory. I was like, what is that word? Trajectory?
Yeah.
Moving still in this direction. Another thing that you and I both agree on is that in any industry of dance, but dance as a whole, a lot of times your reputation outweighs your talent. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get into that a little bit, and what ways you've seen that, whether it's when you're being cast as a performer or you're doing casting or setting pieces on people.
Yeah, I will say, like, that's something I kind of learned within the past couple of years, because the amount of times, and even just like recently, the amount of times I've gotten people like asking me, that are like casting for projects, whether that's like theater related or dance related. And like, I have like friends that are coming to me and they're like, hey, I have this person in mind. Are they a good human? Like, yes, they seem like, they sent me their dance reels. They seem talented, but like, what do you think of them as a human? And like, I'll be honest, like, there are people where I literally am like, yeah, so I'm just going to be so real with you. I'm like, this person I will never work with again. Or, hey, this person, just so you know, like, is like, not only are they talented, they are sweet as pie. They are so dedicated. They are so awesome. Like, it truly is. And it's scary. Like, it's scary to me because like, there's moments where I'm like, I don't ever want to say or do anything that's gonna tarnish my reputation. Yeah. And there have been like moments. Yeah. Wait, sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I just did the same thing the other day, similar situation where I was like, yeah, like it was even as simple as I said, I was like, great dancer. I don't know her personally. Anything I have heard about her has been kind of drama based, and it seems a little like that's the energy. But again, that's just what I have heard. But if I'm hearing that from people, like, you know what I mean? And that's not even my firsthand. And I said, I can't speak from firsthand judgment. Don't know her like that, but this is what I've heard because I'm the same way. But I also think it's funny that you're worried about it because I also feel like you're just a good person. And
Thank you.
But those are the people, we're like the people that are worried though. You know what I mean? It's like, what do they say when like a teacher's yelling at the class? It's never the one that's actually needs to be yelled at that takes it to heart, or you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to say anything wrong, but you're actually just inherently a very good person. So odds are you probably aren't going to do anything bad. But I understand though, in the same breath of it's like that line of being true to yourself, but also not stepping too far over the line. Have you had experiences? Do you feel like where you've had to bite your tongue a little bit in order to save your reputation? I mean, there's also professional, doesn't mean you don't have to say everything that comes to your mind because there's a level of professionalism that goes with it.
Well, it's hard, period. It's hard. It's hard to navigate, like, when is it right to say something and speak up for yourself if you think that something's wrong or think that something's not being handled right versus being like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to make anybody mad, because I've been in like both situations. Like there have been moments where things are not right that I'm like, oh, like Morgan DiFonzo as the human, as the hot-headed Italian woman wants to like go off. You know what I mean? But
I'm a hot-headed Italian woman as well.
Yep. Yes, like it's one of those moments where, you know, I've been in both, but then like I have to kind of reel myself back and be like, okay, but how do you keep it professional? How do you keep it professional and also get your point across? Because I think that in at least like the past couple years, that's how I've started to kind of operate. Is I'm like, if something bothers me, because I've had a fair share of things in the past couple years that have not been handled properly, and like there have been times where I've 1000% spoken up and tried to be as professional, like as I could be, you know what I mean? Like trying to take the emotion out of it and just handle it from a business point of being like, hey, this is not okay how you're treating your employer. Versus like, you know, just like me feeling all the feelings as a human. Sorry, I was losing my train of thought.
And I struggle with that as well, though, of the business and the emotion part, because as dancers, as choreographers, that is a business. Even if you're just a freelance dancer, like you are the business. But we're in a career that is extremely emotionally driven. It should and has to be if you want to be a creative person. So it's like, where do you find that line? And it's so funny because I lean on my husband a lot for that as well, because when it comes to me having to do any type of business things, you always will like not yell, but be like, you're letting your emotions talk. And I'm like, but I have them and they're there. But it's so real of like also time and place of you don't want to say the wrong thing. It's also weighing, are my words going to actually make any good change, or is it is this situation beyond, I don't want to say repair, but also beyond me? Do you know what I mean?
No, 1000%. And I will say I have started to operate in that same way. Like there have been times recently, honestly, within like the past year where I'm like, this is not okay. But rather than me, like, I'm going to allow myself to feel my feelings. I'm a human. Like I'm going to call my parents. I'm going to call my closest friends. I'm going to like allow myself to like word vomit and like get my rage out to them, because I know that those are like my people. But then I'll take like a deep breath and just be like, but you know what? At the end of the day, my favorite saying, honestly, is it is what it is. Like if at a certain point, I know that like this like whatever this wrongdoing is not going to change anything in the grand scheme of things, then you know what? Like I'm just going to allow it to be. But I know for myself personally, what I've started doing is I'm like, I'm never going to forget this. And now going forward, it's just going to influence how I operate and how I allow myself to move, you know, and allow myself to move through this world, and how I kind of foster some of these relationships with people, with theaters, with, just like whatever in this industry, grand scheme, it's going to influence it. And I'm just going to be smarter. And sometimes I just take away, I'm like, I just go, well, that was an experience. And this is what I learned this is what I learned not to do.
It's the same thing we were talking about of like, you're going to use that and then not do the same thing to people in a spiteful, oh, well, this happened to me, so this is how it is, and we're going to just keep doing it. It's like, oh, well, how can I make it better? And I love what you said too about informing your future relationships with people, because I think that's so impactful. It's just knowing what you don't like or what not to do.
Yes.
What do you think people should do or you do when you are working with different people and nurturing those relationships so that they come back to you and you build that and get more work opportunities?
I always try to just lead with professionalism. I always try to lead with my dad is somebody who, kind of like what you said at the end of the day, like, this is all just a business. Like, this is, yes, like, we're following our passions. We're trying to do what we love. But at the end of the day, like, regardless of whatever side you're on, it is a business. Like, you are on the employer side, you're getting paid. They are employing you. They're on also that business side of paying you and all this stuff. And so I try to, again, just lead with as much professionalism as I can, because at the end of the day, it is a job. And I think something that I'm I'm also, I guess, learning, and, continue to navigate is that this is a job, and with every job comes its pros and its cons. So yeah, I think that is my main thing, is to just lead with professionalism. And, that just again ties into, it's like finding the times where you can have that outburst. But at the end of the day, it's like, but if you can handle it in a professional way where you feel like it's going to enact change, or it's going to create something that's actually going to like actively last, like for future people and whatnot, then great. If not, then all you need to do is just take a deep breath, be professional, and be like, this really sucks, but you know what? Noted. And I know, what I noted. I'm literally like, okay. And now we're going to move on from it. You know what I mean?
And it's, and it's that idea of like, I'm very big lately on protecting my personal peace and energy, because when you're passionate about things, it would just suck so much of my time and energy, because you just get consumed because you're so passionate about it and you care and you want it. You don't want it. It doesn't have to be this way, and you want it to be better. And so many things. No, I love that answer of just leading with professionalism. And I think just with more experience, you learn to toe that line and what that line is for you, to each person of what they're willing to put up with and how to deal with it in a way. Because if you allow yourself to continuously get walked over, you are going to literally out and not want to do anything, which leads me right into my next topic. Not love that for us. Well, you laid it up for me of the whole culture of hustle and then burning out and then having the creative block. And I guarantee anyone listening to this has experienced it. So you've talked about your relationship with it. Can you dive in a little bit deeper about how you feel about taking breaks and why they are necessary to take to re-inspire yourself?
Yeah. Well, I know I wrote it out, and as I wrote it out, I kind of had honestly, as Gru, if you watch the Minions, light bulb moment. But I think, and I do this a lot, especially when I'm choreographing, but when I hit a creative block of just every move I come up with, I'm like, no. You know what I mean? I literally will sometimes just be like, okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close my computer. I'm going to turn my phone off, and I'm going to do anything else that is not whatever this is, to allow myself to just mentally take a break. And it really helps me because speaking on it as a choreographer, I'll come back and I will all of a sudden have the answer. I'm like, oh wait, this is the phrase. How did I not think of that? You know what I mean? But sometimes it just makes you realize that taking breaks are necessary. And I know for myself, at least at this point in my life, I definitely feel just recently, I've been comparing a lot. I've been just doing a lot of overthinking, to the point of to the point of detriment, I will say.
Yeah.
And I have recently started to kind of feel like maybe I just need a break. And sometimes breaks look differently for everybody. I don't think like a break means like all of a sudden I'm just going to stop doing all of this. You know what I mean? I think that like for me, I had a moment where I was like, maybe a break means that like I can allow myself to step back and not get so worked up of like, oh my God, did I get an offer for that job? Oh my God, did I get a call back for this show? Oh my God, like, did I, you know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, maybe a break sometimes kind of just looks like being like, you know what, like, I'm going to still submit. And if it happens, great. But like in this moment, I just want to like, I said to a friend
Hang
recently,
out with
I
a
was like,
friend.
yes, I was like, I want to hang out with my friends more. But like, to be honest with you, I'm like, I had a moment recently where I was like, I said this to my dad actually. I said, I feel so sad and tired. I was like, and on top of being sad and tired, I was like, I'm also poor. I was like, I'm so poor. I was like, I can't, because like, I want to so badly to literally, again, I grew up in California. I would go to Disney every single year. I was like, I want to so badly hop on a plane and go be in Disneyland, wear those Mickey Minnie Mouse ears and like get like the pineapple Dole Whip and like not have a care in the world for like 3 days. You know what I mean? But I don't have money to do that. So part of me kind of just like had the realization where I was like, you know what? I was like, yes, I can be sad and tired and burnt out. I was like, but what we can do is take this opportunity to, take a step back, still go, still apply, still audition, but like I can also be allowed to just like take my focus and focus it on another aspect that's like not my theater career at this moment. And right now I'm like, I would love to pay off some more credit card debt that I have dug myself into.
Never ending cycle. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's real of like another thing that isn't always like talked about because
Yeah.
I think, and maybe especially you could speak more on it from a ballet upbringing, especially because I even felt this not having that of like the external pressure of you have to eat, sleep, breathe, dancing, auditioning, performing, where unfortunately, like again, this would maybe not be in our lifetime of maybe one day performers will get paid better, but I don't see that. We got other fish to fry first, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Like even teaching is exhausting to go have to do your day and then go teach and then have to choreograph and not know. Do you feel yourself having an itch to explore different, not give up, but explore different avenues in that regard as you get older?
Absolutely. Funny enough, yes. I was going to say funny enough, like I was just thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a while recently, honestly. I don't think people realize how taxing teaching can be because teaching in and of itself is like putting on a performance. And there have been so many times recently where I feel like I haven't been in like a good headspace, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, but it's a job at the end of the day. I need to like slick my hair back. I was like, I need to put on my clothes and I need to just go. I was like, I need to just go and I need to try to like be the teacher that and give a class that I would want to take, you know what I mean? And that I have taken, as like a student, I've walked into class not being in a good headspace, but then I walk out being like, I feel so much better. And there have been times where teaching has really like lifted me up in that way. But like, again, it's just like teaching. There have been so many times recently where I have called, honestly, I call my dad every day and I just like unload on him. He's like my therapist at this point. But there have been so many times where I've called him recently and I've just been like, what if I just quit all of it? And, he's like, well, don't do that.
And you're like, and here's the burnout right here. We are entering the stage. You're like, here are the feelings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's just a lot because it's like you have to, people just don't realize, I guess, like you have to come up with combos all the time. You have to be that hype person for for students. And like, I love being that person, but like sometimes, life just like fucking sucks. Sorry. I don't mean to cuss. Life just sucks. Okay. And
you have to have your cup full. You can't, whatever, that you can't pour from an empty or half full cup, whatever the saying. Yeah. I always butcher sayings like that, but that's literally the reason I love guest teaching, but like the consistent teaching is not for the weak. Especially that's why I got into teaching fitness, because I was like, listen, I don't have to come up with combos. But even that sometimes, because if you're having a bad day, it doesn't matter. That's your job is not to bring that into
the
your
studio.
workplace.
Yeah.
Your job is literally to do everything you just said. Be that person, put on a good class. If you weren't doing that, it would be the same as someone showing up to their desk job and just like sitting there and not doing their job. You have to. You have to. And it's like that emotional and physical, because you're also like being so physical. You're not just sitting on the phone with someone or typing to someone.
Yeah.
So it is something that like it's hard to maintain, and you have to, in teaching a lot and auditioning and the mental swings of all that, you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but what if you could do like any other like side thing right now? What would interest you?
That's such a good question. I genuinely don't know. I feel like I'm chronic. I always joke to people, I'm chronically on TikTok. I love TikTok. And I feel like there's like moments where people make corporate life look so, I wouldn't say fun, but they make corporate life look just
they romanticize it.
They romanticize it. And like there's moments where I'm like I remember saying the other day, I was like, should I just quit all of my teaching and should I just like try to get like a corporate job? Like that's easy. I'm like, the amount of people I know, especially in the theater industry, that are trying to get corporate jobs that are struggling. And so like, that's when I like have my moments where I'm like, I couldn't do that. But that's the other avenue. But my dad keeps telling me, like, he keeps telling me that like I should really try to slowly start making more of a pivot in towards like choreography versus like performing, because like performing, just like the life of a performer is hard. It's crazy. I mean, but that's the thing, is that like, I think regardless of whatever industry you're in, like even choreography, I'm like, that's hard and crazy. And like, that's just as much of a battle, as like being an actor and like trying to like get into a show.
Yeah.
It's like, it's different avenues, but like they correlate very similarly in that regard.
I think too, especially, I think performing is a little bit more black and white in the sense of you go to an audition and you book the part or you don't, or you have connections and someone asks you to do a show and you do it or you don't, versus when you're freelance choreo or even just like freelance popping in to teach. I think it's a disservice as a young dancer to not learn more about business or marketing or how to sell yourself in that way, because now you're like, well, like we talked about how you're a business, like I'm a business, you're a business, whatever. But like even me to this day, starting a podcast, I'm like, how do I market this? How do I make money off of this? How do I do it? I preach putting your eggs in one basket, but it's also like maybe putting a lot of eggs in multiple baskets instead of sprinkling them everywhere, where it's like, okay, like let's like think a little bit more. And I think if you can think of it as a not plan B, but just like what's next, because at the end of the day, you can't dance forever. It's just not physically at the level that you would want to. So it's like, how can I incorporate other aspects of the dance world to make it a full like career?
A full career. Yeah. And that's what my dad has really been like preaching lately at me. He's like, and I hear him and I agree with him. And that's why like recently I've had a lot more opportunities to choreograph professionally. And like people, I think what's hard is navigating when people are like, oh, are you done performing? And I'm like, no. I'm not done performing, but I'm trying to set myself up. Like I would be lying. And I've said this since like, not since day one, but like I've said this like basically since day one of like, I think my end goal is to be like a professional choreographer. But like,
say it out loud. I love it.
Yeah. But like, I have so many dreams and aspirations, like, yes, as an actor, but like, I love to choreograph. I really do. I love to choreograph.
Also, your choreography, the word is so hard. Your choreography is so good. When I should come take your class when I'm in Chicago next. And hopefully it's on a day where I'm like, I'm coming and you're like, this is one of my days. I'm like putting on a show.
I love choreographing. And so, I've been taking a lot more professional choreography gigs recently, because in my brain, I'm like, this is exactly what you just said. Like I'm taking my eggs and I'm trying to drop it into different baskets, because like the way that I look at it is I'm like, for instance, like this, like the whole first, like I'd say like 5 months of this year, I will have choreographed 3 shows. And I like, while I was doing that, I was also teaching on top of that. And like, yes, that doesn't mean that I wasn't in a show, you know, and then you battle the mental gymnastics, you battle like, oh my God, what are people going to think? But like at the end of the day, I'm like, but I'm setting myself up for later on in my life when when I start to, you know, reach that point where it's like, well, I can't dance anymore, you know, professionally. I'm like, okay, but look at my resume of choreo that I've done in like, you know, my early years. And now I'm ready to like fully transition over. It's like, I don't think that I'm hoping at least the work I'm doing now is going to slowly start to kind of like take me into that next avenue.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel like there was ever any like pressure in the way of, I sometimes felt growing up, and I couldn't pinpoint why. I think it was a me thing of like, if you didn't perform, you were not a successful dancer. However,
yes.
now I even have friends who, Alyssa Brutlock, who was on this podcast, like literally choreographing for UDA. She's doing multiple shows, but she's like, I actually just never really wanted to dance. I didn't want to perform. I knew that's not where my strength and passion was. And I've always wanted to choreograph. That was for me. I was like, whoa, you didn't want to perform. Things evolved too, where you kind of had to have that performance experience and love and live that out. But then you also gain so much knowledge through that part of your career that you're like, actually, wait, I really love to choreograph. And now I have all this knowledge. You can't just know all the ins and outs without being a part of it in some way.
Being a part of it. Yeah.
Aspect as well.
And I think that's like what makes it so hard and why I feel like I take it so personally when people are like, oh, are you done performing? Cause like that's what got me into all of this to begin with. Like, again, like being in a ballet studio, like I didn't even care it was ballet. I just want to be on stage in a pretty costume, like dancing and performing in front of an audience. Like I always used to tell people to, like I tell my students this now, like I loved when we would go in the small groups in class because like that meant I got to perform in front of my peers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that like I think it's one of those things where, and it's something I still battle, like, and I battle internally because I'm like, I'm not ready to hang up my performing hat, but I'm also ready to explore. I'm ready to grow the choreographer hat, but I am by far not ready to hang up my performer hat. And sorry, I just realized I didn't answer your question of like, that's why sometimes it hits a little bit harder when I don't have a show, when I don't have a, you know, performance opportunity, because I'm like, but I'm young. I want to do that as much as I can right now so that later on, like I can say that I did that, you know what I mean? And that like, I got my fix. There's one other thing I wanted to say. Sorry, I'm going to like jump way back to like the teaching aspect of everything just because you know, I just want to talk about it. But like, I think what's also really hard is that, you know, when you teach, especially like, because I teach like at Visceral, which in the city of Chicago, I feel like Visceral is like essentially like the Broadway Dance Center and the steps of Chicago.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And like also because I do teach at Roosevelt and whatnot, I sometimes feel like there's like almost like an added pressure of like, well, she's teaching, like, what is she doing professionally? What is she like? Is she working? Like, you know, regardless of if it's performance or choreography, like, what is she doing? And so like, I still like, I get so worked up because it's like not even like, it's just like, am I working period? Like, am I working professionally period so that people can, this sounds so terrible, so that like I feel like people will respect me or people will like look at me like I'm actually like worthy of teaching at the collegiate level, worthy of teaching at the visceral level, like just worthy of teaching. And I think regardless, like I think I am good enough to do that, but like it's still hard because I battle those demons of like, but I have to make sure I have work so that other people will like respect me, which is so bad, but it is what it is.
It's that imposter syndrome that is so hard to get rid of. Like so hard. I mean, I remember I think now being out of Rockettes for a year, being out of it, I don't feel like an imposter anymore, which is so crazy. I mean, that's actually a whole nother can of worms probably, but for another time. But even when you've done like all of the things you've done, you're like, oh, I still have to prove my work. There's so much more that defines you as a teacher even than just dance. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
People think that, oh, it's not about your credit. It's about your experience in life. And back to our point of like burnout thing and going and being a human outside of dance. What do you think outside of the dance world when you do take your breaks? How does that make you a better teacher and performer?
taking a break and taking a step away from all of it, when I go back to it, it makes me realize like this is what I want to do at the end of the day. Like this is above all else, this is literally the end all be all for me. Like I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
You don't actually want. Yeah, see, you don't want that 9-to-5 corporate job. You don't
No,
want that,
I
even though
don't.
TikTok makes you think you want it. Let's start saying other things into your algorithm. Get the phone's gonna like algorithm you all of the corporate things. But listen, I'm sure they're doing that because they got to make it fun. And just like, maybe your calling is TikTok vlogging.
And people have told me that, and I'm like, maybe I will, but also like, that is so much work. I don't know if I could.
It is. We don't want to discuss that right now, but maybe later off the mic we can. But point being of like, I love that answer and it relates you too. I was going to say something along the lines as well. For it almost like helps my ego a little bit too when you're talking to people that maybe like aren't in the arts, because it is a career that you obviously have to love it to do. And not everyone in the world is fortunate enough to really love what they're doing. And so then it's that reminder of a blessing. And wait, no, I'm like actually doing like just the fact that anyone's even attempting to do it. I always say that to people when they like move to a new city or they go put themselves out there at an audition. That is stepping towards what your dream and what you want to be doing. And that's way more than a lot of people do.
Yes.
So to give yourself credit for that.
Yeah. That's what my dad always says, because he, for the longest time, was like growing up, like he worked a corporate job. Like he was in film and television, but he was more so like he worked on like the video, like he would worked for the companies that would like send out the video cameras and whatnot. And like the actual like film equipment people would use like to film these series.
Yeah, like things we don't know about.
Right. Things we don't know about, but like definitely corporate. And I remember like recently, and like by recently, just like in the past couple years, I learned that he actually, because he didn't tell me this when I was a kid, that he was like a professional musician for like most of his life. Yes. He was a professional drummer, singer. Like he was like an entertainer. So like also the running joke that I always tell people now is I'm like, both my parents are entertainers. It's just now there's just no question.
Literally about to say that. I'm like, it's in your blood. Like, literally.
But he always tells me, because I was like, what is like one of your biggest regrets? And he's like, honestly, giving up music. And so he always tells me, he's like, you have to just he was like, you're doing the thing. And he was like, no matter what the thing is, he was like, you're doing it, you're trying. He was like, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So, yeah.
And Dad, maybe he could sing for you. And I have just loved this conversation too, because I can guarantee there will be people listening to this episode that they're like, oh my gosh, Morgan's on and she's so amazing. And I look up to her so much. And it's one of my favorite things to do, is to be so vulnerable in a spot where you are where you are. And I know logistically, that you like deserve to be where you are and you've done so many amazing things and people look up to you, but to know that even you are still having these feelings and having these thoughts, and one, it's normal, and two, younger people can push through and like get to where they want to be, because everyone feels this way. And it's an ongoing battle. My final questions I ask everyone, if you had to give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's such a good question.
It's hard.
I think, okay, I'm going to give you the answer because it's on my vision board that I'm looking at right now.
I love
making vision boards, but my favorite thing to say to myself recently is, no one is you and that is your power. And that's what I wish I would have told my younger self. That's my advice.
That.
Yeah.
I never heard that one. And I love, like, in that way, it's such a powerful way to say that.
Yeah.
If you had one key takeaway for people listening, if you wanted them to remember one thing from this conversation, what would it be?
Oh, God, really hitting me with the good questions.
Save them for the end.
Nobody's perfect. I think that, like, if like the people that are listening to like this podcast, like, no, like, especially the ones that like know me, I'm like knowing like what we just said of like, I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? And regardless of past like dance teachers that I just talked about and whatnot, like they're also not perfect. Like I don't like, just because they may have inflicted trauma and whatnot doesn't mean that makes them like awful people. It just means that they're not perfect. And we're all just kind of trying to navigate and go about this life the best way we can. And people are a lot of times are just like, what's the saying where it's like, you're just kind of, I don't want to say object is not the correct word, but like you're a byproduct of your like environment.
Yeah. Yes. You're just a byproduct of your environment. I think that's what it is.
And so I think that would be like my main thing is like my main takeaway is, that we're all just trying to figure this out as we go.
Yeah. And it made me think about when we were having that part of our conversation and I never got around to saying it, of giving people benefit of the doubt, even when you're upset. And because speaking from my experience, I know I'm not perfect and I'm sure I've done things not the best way. And I think that's another nice part of it is just, standing your ground and like also trying to give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove you wrong. But other than that,
until they prove you, until they kill somebody.
And then we clock it and we don't forget it.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh my God. Morgan, this has been therapeutic for me. Where can we find you I will put in the show notes as well, but where can everyone find you to follow you, take your class? And
yes, you can find me on Instagram at Morgan DiFonzo, DIFONZO. I love to spell it. And I teach at Visceral on Tuesdays. It's intermediate advanced theater jazz, 1:30 to 3 p.m. in Chicago, Illinois. And my next project, which I'm really excited about, is I'm choreographing for Paramount Theater's South Pacific this upcoming spring.
Casual.
So if you're in the Chicagoland area and you want to drive an hour outside to Aurora, Illinois to see my choreo in South Pacific, they'll be hitting the step. Not a crazy amount, but they'll still be doing a little step ball change.
It'll still be cute. The energy will be right. It'll be so good. Yeah. I am obsessed. Oh, thank you for being here and hanging with us. When you guys love this episode, like, comment, subscribe, all the podcast things, and love you guys. And we will kick it real with you next time.
Yeah.